Well, we'd like to welcome you to the 2018 South Dakota Football Media Day. Today's format will have a question and answer session with Austin Simmons, Andrew Gray, Shamar Jackson, and Darren Greenfield, followed by head coach Bob Nielsen. Following the press conference, Coach will stay right here in the Dome Club for those that have requested one-on-one interviews. Austin, Andrew, and Darren will begin one-on-one interviews on the field level of the Dakota Dome at 1:45, with the remaining one-on-one interviews at 2 p.m. on the field level. Austin Simmons is entering his junior season as team captain. Last year, he saw action in 8 games, completing 17 of 28 passes for 197 yards and 4 touchdowns. Andrew Gray started all 13 games last season at safety, earning second-team All-Missouri Valley Football Conference accolades. His 89 tackles led the Coyotes and set a program record for the longest interception return with a 97-yard pick six against Southern Illinois. He enters his senior season as a preseason selection to the MVFC All-Defensive Team. Shamar Jackson, a member of the preseason Missouri Valley Football Conference offensive team, returns for his senior campaign after leading the Coyotes with 53 catches a year ago. He set a USD single-game record with 229 receiving yards in the victory over number 3 Youngstown State. Darren Greenfield is a preseason All-American as a junior after leading the Valley and ranking 5th in the nation with 19.5 tackles for a loss. He totaled 9 sacks as part of his 59 tackles. The captain is on the Buck Buchanan preseason watch list, the award that goes to the top defensive player in the FCS. We will now open questions for the players to members of the media. Brittany Waller is in the back with the microphone. Please ask the questions into the microphone.
Andrew, could you list a few reasons to be optimistic about how the defense is going to play this year?
A couple of reasons I can think of. We really changed up our scheme to simplify things for us, and we have some young, talented guys that are getting ready to go in fall camp, and they're getting better really quick. And then we have a core group of guys that are coming back and have played a lot of football.
Austin, how anxious are you to get your chance? I know you've been kind of waiting in the wings these last couple of years. It's got to be a good feeling for you to finally get your chance.
Yeah, definitely very exciting. I've been waiting a while, like you said, so just looking forward to getting to that first game, get some action.
This is a question for all you guys. You guys mentioned all the young talent that's coming in this year. Anybody so far in fall camp that has stood out to you as someone that we should watch for the season this year?
I think on the defensive side, we needed some guys at DB. Defensive back was a position where we've been pretty thin. And Trey Jackson and Jakari Starling are 2 freshmen right now that I think are doing really good. Jakari also plays the same position as me, and he picks everything up like a sponge. He's a super smart kid.
We get that one, Shane?
I think Keenan, the freshman running back, he's picking up things pretty quickly, and we got a freshman receiver, Carter. He's coming along good, learning the plays and whatnot.
Darren, we'll start with you. You guys go 4-8 2 years ago, 4-7, and then 8-5 last year. Coach has always talked about building blocks and continuing to step. You guys feel like this is a year that you can even take that next step, and if so, why? And kind of just where's the confidence level at?
Overall, as we came out of summer, which was the best summer we've had since I've been here, we really built a good base to jump into fall camp with. And I think the confidence on this team is just through the roof right now. I mean, we got people flying all over the place, making plays, whether that's on defense or offense. I mean, as a defensive player, you want to see the defense make more plays, but sometimes it's good to see the offense tune us up a little bit sometimes, see what we need to work on. And, I mean, as you mentioned, we went 8-5 last year. I mean, it's a great accomplishment, but we don't want to end there. We want to keep going. We want to make a run farther and farther into the playoffs. And, I mean, you can see kind of from 4-7 to 8-5. I mean, we got the potential to do it. It's just we need to have 100% confidence on every play and every game and see where it takes us.
Austin, how much of a comfort is it to know that you have a lot of experience as you enter, your first years with the #1 guy, knowing that you do have a lot of guys who play a lot of football around you?
Yeah, it's definitely nice having this group of guys around me on the offense side of the ball. A lot of receivers with experience, a lot of talented guys there. Got some experience at the running back position, a lot of depth there. Got some guys in the line who's been playing for a couple of years now, so definitely a lot of guys around me that can make plays and step up and do that type of thing, so it's helpful for sure.
Andrew, you've been one of the leaders on the defensive side of the football, obviously, and now you're going into your senior season, and you know what this conference is like. You talked about some of the young guys who are making plays in practice and whatnot. What can you do, tell them or show them to try to prepare them for the Missouri Valley Football Conference, or is it something they just have to experience?
I think we can definitely try to prepare them as best as we want, but they're definitely going to have to experience it. But one thing they have to know is that the Missouri Valley, it's a tough conference, and people are going to get hurt, people are going to go down, so we just have to prepare them just in case if their time comes to be ready to play.
Andrew, when you go from a losing season to a winning season and making the playoffs last year, have you seen any change in approach from the coaching staff as far as motivation or anything else goes?
The good thing is I don't think there has been a lot of changes in the coaching staff and their attitudes. I think more so players, we've had more of a positive outlook because we know we're capable now. And we're kind of setting the expectation there. If we don't make the second round of the playoffs, I think that's where the expectation is. Obviously, we want to do more than that. So I don't really think there's been a change in the coaches' attitudes at all.
Question for Austin. Obviously, big shoes stepping into with Strevler leaving. What might you offer to this team, or what might you bring to the table that fans might see that might be in contrast to what Chris offered to this team?
I think Strev and I do a lot of things, or some things similar, and then there's some differences also. I think some things that you'll see a little bit different, maybe just a little bit different style of throwing, different style of play, I guess. Strev was a great runner, so he'd like to incorporate that quite a bit into his style of play. I'll run the ball a little bit too, but maybe not quite as much as him, so just kind of see what happens this year.
Darren, kind of going off that previous question about the expectations and everything, and maybe the change in approach. Are expectations maybe a little different now that for years and years this program was trying to get to that level, then you got there, and so you know what it takes. Is it a little bit different now this year?
Yeah, one of the things we focused on was the last few years I've been here is changing our culture, getting that where we need to be, and now that it is. Coach has said we don't want to be complacent with where we are, and that's something that's stuck in my head as you get certain accolades, stuff like that, and you can't let that stuff go to your head and takes you away from football. I mean, everyone here knows what we're here to do, and that's play as a team and win games, and that's one of the things that has really emerged.
And just following up on the previous question with Chris, different styles, but what did you take away or learn from him playing behind him for a season?
Yeah, I actually got asked a similar question recently. The big takeaways from him are really just his competitive nature and just his will to win, and his preparation going through watching film and just his game prep. Really second to none in both those categories, so for sure taking away that.
Shamar is one of the senior wide receivers, leaders in that group. You're obviously seeing this quarterback change with Austin Simmons. You guys have seen him the last couple of years, so you're familiar with him. But it also, in this offense, a lot of guys get on the field, a lot of guys want the football, a lot of guys will have the opportunity. What do you tell some of the younger wide receivers, the guys, you know, who are going to want the football a lot but may not get it as much as they want in this type of offense to make that group work together well?
I mean, the first thing I'd say is, you know, get in your playbook and learn your assignments. And secondly, the ball is going to get distributed everywhere. We got, you know, four or five different receivers on the field at every time. So it's gonna come out. So, I mean, if you're open, you're open. If you're not, you're not. We got other players that can make plays.
Do we have any further questions for the players?
We now welcome head coach Bob Nielsen to the table. Coach Nielsen is a 3-time National Coach of the Year recipient, 2-time national champion head coach, and the 2016 Missouri Valley Football Coach of the Year. 2018 is his 26th year as a head coach, and he has compiled 198 wins for a win percentage of .682. We will begin with opening comments.
Thanks, Ryan. First of all, thanks for coming. Appreciate your attention and your support of our program. You know, camp's gotten off to a great start, and camp's gotten off to a great start because as a team we had a great summer. We had 100 players here for the vast majority of the summer. Guys worked really hard, put us in a position where we could jump start forward with the start of practice here almost a week ago. Seen our team progress over that first week of camp. We've got a big core group of guys back that did not practice in the spring. I think there were 12 to 14 guys out of our 2 deep that did not practice at all in the spring due to injury or recovering from surgery in the off season. All of them are practicing at least on a limited basis with the exception of Nate Schultz, and his status in terms of when he clear is still up in the air. We've had some changes. You know, for the first time in my career, you know, I lost more than one staff guy. We had 3 staff changes. The new staff has fit in very well and feel really good about where we're at staff-wise. Moose Monson's taken over as our defensive coordinator, and as Andrew and Darren talked about, we're doing some things differently on the defensive side of the football this year. You're going to see more multiple front looks. It'll still look like a 4-man front. You'll also see some 3-man front looks. And trying to do some things from a coverage standpoint that will allow our guys to play faster. Coming off the year last year, the 2 priorities were we've got to maintain the kind of consistency offensively that we had a year ago when we were one of the top offenses in the country, and we've got to improve defensively. We've got to be a team that does a better job overall defensively, because in this league you're going to face some outstanding offensive football teams, and you've got to be able to stop teams at critical times, and we struggled doing that last year, particularly in some of the games down the stretch and once we got into the playoffs. Talk just a little bit about our personnel, and then I'll open it up for questions. You know, the captains and the seniors talked a little bit about some of the young guys, and we are a very, very young football team. Out of our 107, I think it's 107 that we've got practicing, we've got 25 juniors and seniors. That means everybody else is freshman, redshirt freshman, or sophomore. That's about as young a team as I've ever worked with. But at the same time, a lot of those younger players have played, and so we've got some experience in that group. Defensively, up front, it's nice to have a guy like Darren Greenfield, who in our new scheme is going to play kind of a defensive end, a hybrid, a guy that you may see at linebacker as well as playing with his hand in the ground in the defensive front. He is a guy that leads by example with the way that he plays. He's going to give you everything he's got on every play. You know, he's maybe a little bit undersized as a defensive end, but he makes up for it with some really good technique and the way that he plays. Another guy that I think has the potential to be an all-conference caliber player in that defensive front is Cameron Klein. He's bigger. This year he's going to be 265, 270 pounds. Very athletic and like Darren, a very, very good pass rusher. Inside, we've got three other juniors. Devlon Whitcomb, who missed the majority of the year last year due to injury. Lou Peguero and Braden DeBoer, both of whom played a fair amount last year. You'll see that grouping a lot, along with three sophomores, Jake Headley from Harrisburg, Nick Kramer, and Jackson Coker, all of whom played last year either as redshirt freshmen or, as in the case of Coker, as a true freshman. At that defensive end, a hybrid position, Spencer Hopkins, who's our only senior in that entire position group. And we've got a sophomore, Jake Richardson, kind of an interesting story. Jake was with us as a freshman, actually left our program a year ago, went to junior college and came back. A guy that also a very good pass rusher off the edge. So, you know, we've got some experience in that group. And obviously if we would, you know, get a guy like Nate Schultz back at some point in time during the season, which is still a little bit up in the air due to the severity of the injury that he had, create even more depth for us at that position. Linebacker grouping is a position group that we have some seniors with Alex Gray, Alex Coker, and Clay Fisher. You know, having three seniors in one position group is pretty unique for us with the small group of seniors that we have. But we also have a guy like Jack Cochran there who played as a true freshman last year, which in the Valley you don't see a lot of true freshman inside linebackers. But he's got a physical presence to him this year. Has gotten a lot bigger. Very smart football player. Guy's going to play a lot along with sophomores Jake Matthew. Jake, another bigger linebacker, a guy that you haven't seen much of over the last 2 years because we redshirted him the first year, and then last year he was hurt. So we're excited to get him on the field and at full speed, along with Connor Thiel, another sophomore, and then redshirt freshman Jonathan Jonas, who's a very athletic linebacker that he, along with the other senior, Alex Coker, will be at one of the outside linebacker positions. Safety, Andrew Gray, he talked about Michael Johnson, Jr., that played a lot last year. You know, those two bring us a lot of experience, along with sophomores Phil Powell and E.J. Reed. Both fit what we're doing really well defensively. They're a little bit bigger safeties that can roll down and play the run as well as be effective in pass coverage. And then the freshman Jakari Starling from Florida, you know, a young man that may well work his way into the rotation there based on what we've seen over the first week of camp. At corner, you know, we had to have some guys step up last year. In the second half of the season, and we had two guys that did that, Ike Armstead and Mark Collins. You know, at this point in camp, they would, without question, be our top two in that position group. We're pretty young in that position group beyond those two. We've got 2 redshirt freshmen, Jordan Somerville and Darian Bolden, and then 3 freshmen, all Florida natives, Trey Jackson, Cameron Tisdale, and Rodney Sivils, that are all very, very talented, and they're going to sort out, I think, here over the next 2 weeks. And, you know, there are going to be a couple of them that may end up in or 2 deep at that position group. As we move over to the offensive side, quarterback-wise, you know, Austin Simmons, and you know, the hard thing about a guy like Simmons is he's going to get compared to Chris Streveler all the time. You know, Chris, very unique football player. Austin is highly skilled, and it's just a matter of him gaining in his game experience. And you might remember, you know, 2 years ago, compared to last year, you know, Chris Streveler was a different football player. And, you know, Austin's going to hit the ground running. You know, he's got a fair amount of experience. He might be the only undefeated quarterback in the Missouri Valley Conference as a starter, because I think he started 3 games, or basically started 3 games. I think he's 3-0. But at the same time, you know, when you're the regular guy, it's different. And our guys have a lot of confidence in him. You know, he doesn't like to talk about himself. I think his strengths are his ability to throw the football. He can throw the football as well as anybody that I've worked with in 25 years. It's just a matter of seeing things on the field, and that comes from game experience. He's also athletic enough that he can make plays with his feet, which is important in our offensive system. Tyler Sagalis, who right now would be his backup, is a very good football player too. So we feel like we've got some depth at that position that has benefited from being in our offensive system for a year and playing it in the high-tempo system. They're surrounded by experience, which is good. All our top running backs return. You know, Kai Henry is bigger and more physical than he was a year ago as a true freshman. We've got a young freshman there that, in addition to guys like Frederick and Klett, who you saw a significant amount last year, Kanan Brooks, who's had a very good early part of camp, and you know, may be a guy that you see on the field some as well fairly early on in the season. Tight end position, Brett Sampson, who was the most athletic in that position group last year, is a very talented, very multiple type athlete, which we need in our system. The 2 seniors that we graduated there, who played a lot in combination with Brett, we feel like we can replace with some of the younger guys at that position, Alex Jensen, Nate Kneifel, along with sophomore Connor Herman, who's had a great camp and had a great summer, it continues to develop physically. We've got 5 starters back in the offensive line, 5 guys that have started a lot of football games in the Missouri Valley. Which is unique. You know, not many schools can say they've had that. Nick Jensen is back practicing, not quite fully cleared, but we would expect him to be fully cleared within the next week. Tanner Anderson and Cody Jennings represent the 3 seniors in that position group. The other 2 returning starters, Mason Scheidegger and Tyler Shure, have both done a good job in the off-season. Mason did not practice in the spring. He's back fully healthy, although if you see practice today, he's still wearing a black jersey. We're limiting him just a little bit to make sure that he gets through fall camp 100%. And then T.J. Johnson, Jr., who was hurt last year and missed the entire season, is back to give us even a little bit more depth at that position group. And there's a couple of young guys. Austin Wallace, redshirt freshman from Illinois, has had a really good spring. He'll be in our rotation there, along with a couple of even younger guys than him, Braden Schneider, Isaac Urbis and Kean Rexroth Potts, all big 6'6", 290, 300-pound bodies that our league is full of. Wide receiver, our deepest position, both in terms of talent, I think, and also in terms of playing experience, and again, a position group where we only have one senior. Besides Sham, we've got Dakari Allen, Tristan Ducker, Randy Baker, and then add to that Levi Falk. You might remember Levi started out the season with a couple of big games and then got hurt and was really limited over the second half of the season, along with true freshman from last year, Cody Case, who has the ability to be a very electric player in the Missouri Valley Conference. Add to that group redshirt freshman Reggie Crawford, who's one of those big 6'3", 6'4", 215-pound type bodies that gives you an even greater threat on the perimeter. And we've got a couple of young guys there, true freshmen, that I think are going to push for playing time and be in the rotation as well. Finally, the kicking game. We've got very competitive positions there. Brady Scott, who punted for us last year and did a very good job, is being pushed by Brian Clements from California, a freshman that we redshirted a year ago. At the kicking position, we've got a senior in Ethan James. He's being challenged by transfer from Iowa Western Community College, Mason Lorber, as well as Dominic Long, another freshman that was redshirted a year ago. And long snapper Dalton Godfrey, who last year as a true freshman we were able to redshirt because of the fact that we had a really good senior in Brandon Godsey. Has looked very good, and we've got another true long snapper in Andrew Morrison, and those two are very competitive as well. So we've got a lot of depth at those positions that we feel good about, and a situation where those guys are working hard every day to earn their positions on our football team. As we go ahead, we got a great challenge the opening week. Kansas State, going to be an outstanding football team, potentially top 25 FBS program. Our guys are excited about the opportunity, understand that we've got a lot of work yet to do here over the next 20 practices to get ready for that game. Our schedule's going to be, as always, one of the finest in the country. We've got, I think, depending on which poll you look at, 3 or 4 top 10 football teams on our schedule, in addition to a couple others that are nationally ranked in the top 25. And I think our guys said it best. We had a good year last year. We took a step forward as a program, and now the goal for us is to take the next step, which is all about getting yourself into a position where you can not just make the playoffs, but make a run in the playoffs, and that means we got to get better every day, and we've got to get better in some of the areas that were areas of concern a year ago.
Once again, please use the microphone for questions, and we'll now open for questions.
Coach, some of the decisions of upgrading the defense, was it more of what Coach Munson brings now as your defensive coordinator, or is it more of the talent that you have for the Coyotes?
It's a combination of both. Of course, every defensive coordinator's got their area of expertise and is going to tweak your system a little bit. But also, I think what we're doing now fits our personnel very well, and gives us a chance to do some things that hopefully allow us to confuse blocking schemes and create a little bit more chaos from the defensive side than we did a year ago. And I think that's one of the things that we went into the offseason and said, we're not as physically dominating in personnel as some of the really good defensive teams in our league, and so we've got to be a little bit more creative. We've got to be able to move guys around, and the way you do that is by giving teams multiple looks.
Coach, with last year, obviously making the playoffs and then winning a game in the playoffs, you said your goal is to take that next step. Have you noticed an attitude change, whether it's with your staff or with the players, maybe picking up intensity, knowing now what it takes to get to the playoffs and to win there?
I think there's a different confidence level in our football team, from a standpoint that experience, our guys understand that that's the ultimate goal every year, that we want to be a national playoff team year in, year out. And they understand what it takes to get there. You got to play well every week. You got to find a way to win close games, because you're going to have a lot of them in this league. And so that experience is something that we've got a whole bunch of guys on our football team now that have it, that didn't have it a year ago. And yeah, the thing that I've noticed this year, even with a really young football team, is there's been a lot more business-like approach to practice. You know, the guys understand that these are things we got to get better at. These are the things we got to focus on. These are the things that made a difference a year ago, and we got to keep building.
Bob, you mentioned several true freshmen here. Given the new rules that you are going to have a little bit of latitude with those guys, are you measuring these guys or maybe watching them a little bit more closely because the rules have changed?
Yeah. You know, and I've talked to all my colleagues regarding this rule, and, you know, we're still all kind of trying to get our arms around how we're going to use it. And you know, I think you're all aware the NCAA changed the redshirt rule now that allows you to actually play a young man in up to 4 games and still redshirt him. I think what it is it's going to do 2 things. Number one, it's going to provide some incentive for your guys, your freshmen, that, hey, I'm going to keep working because there's a chance that as the year goes on, I might get a chance to play and still, you know, keep a year of eligibility. But I think it does create for some, I'm not going to say creative, but I think it does provide some interesting coaching decisions where you take a young player and find out if they are truly ready. You know, I think a year ago, for example, Jackson Coker, who we pulled a red shirt on in the defensive line, he played okay. If this rule would have been in existence, you know, we might have played him in the 4 games and then decided to redshirt him. I think there's going to be some situations like that. It'll be interesting. You know, I think, you know, from a special team standpoint, as you get towards the end of the year, you know, there may be some things that you do with some younger players to help you bolster your special teams. That can still provide the opportunity for them to redshirt without losing a year of eligibility. All the compliance people in the country right now are wondering how they're going to manage this headache that the NCAA has created, but that's their problem, I guess, to worry about.
Bob, will be the main thing you need to do, for your team needs to accomplish to take that next step? I mean, you talked about getting better at a lot of things. What would you say there's one main area that you're concentrating on more?
Well, we've got to be a better defensive football team. I mean, there was a lot of defensive categories a year ago that we were in the bottom half of the conference, and you know, a couple things that we focused on. We got to continue to do a good job with turnover margin. We did last year. You know, we generated more turnovers than we gave up. That's a big part of winning football. But we got to be a better football team in the red zone, both offensively and defensively. You know, we didn't do a good job when teams got the ball in our territory last year, keeping them out of the end zone, And we could have been a little bit better, quite frankly, in the red zone offensively, putting the ball in the end zone. Those points make huge differences in close games. You know, you think of a couple of games last year where we squandered opportunities in the red zone and they cost us football games. And so those are areas that we're focused on that are definitely areas that we need to get better. I think we can be better in the kicking game. I thought we were really sound last year. I think we're capable of making more big plays in the kicking game. And that's an area that can win you close games. And in this league, every little thing like that makes a big difference.
Coach, with the weapons that Austin will have at his disposal, do you put any limitations on him early in the season as far as trying to rein him in a little bit, or do you just turn him loose? That's a good question.
I think one of the things that we're trying to get a handle on through preseason camp is, let's find the things that Austin does really well, and then build on those things. We got to a point where with a guy like Chris a year ago, we added a lot of stuff as the year went on, and I think that'll be the case this year. That we'll focus on those things that Austin does really well early, and then build on those things. And part of what you do in preseason camp is you put a lot of stuff in, and then you polish those things that you can get really good at based on what you think your personnel can do best. And quarterback position's one of those positions that you're evaluating all the time.
Coach, going back to your comments about Kansas State, you guys did play against an FBS opponent last year in Bowling Green. How are your guys taking to fall camp so far with the possible added uncomfortability of playing in front of a huge crowd like you would at Kansas State?
Well, it'll be a great environment. One of the things that's great about the Valley is you play in some very difficult environments. There's not many places that are any louder than playing in the Fargo Dome. They might have more people, but it's probably not going to be any louder than what the Fargo Dome is. And so I think it helps playing in our league and having guys that have played a lot. But it's still going to be a very difficult environment to go down there and play a really good football team. What it's going to do is it's going to give you a pretty good gauge of where you're at in relationship to the best teams in the country. And the top teams in our league are teams that are going to be I'm not going to say similar to Kansas State, but are also going to represent some of the best teams in the country at our level.
Any final questions for Coach? All right, we'd like to
Thanks
thank
again.
everyone. Thanks everyone for attending today's conference. As a reminder, Coach will remain in the Dome Club for one-on-one interviews for those that requested him. Austin Simmons, Andrew Gray, and Darren Greenfield will all begin one-on-one interviews at 1:45 on the field level of the Dakota Dome, and the remaining one-on-one interviews will begin at 2 p.m. Thank you.